Hello and welcome to Gardening Australia. For many of us, it's the start of autumn. For others, the wet season keeps on keeping on. Wherever you are, we're keeping the gardening good times rolling. Here's what we've got in store for you this week. Tammy's heading up to see what goodness is growing on a newly established balcony garden.
The inspiring thing about this garden of Steve's is just how much there is of it.
They say that love is the universal language understood by all. But I've found a place where the love of gardening is the universal language. And it's brought many cultures of the world together.
Cheers.
Yamas.
This has to be one of the very best times of year in the garden. It's so abundant, but it's also the perfect time to get some work done for your future awards.
And when we think of autumn, the temptation is to imagine the reds and golds of maples and other Northern Hemisphere trees. But I'm going to show you some native plants that have plenty of autumnal colour.
The great thing about being a plant person is that it stays with you forever. No matter where you go, the passion for growing remains. And even if you move to a smaller place, it doesn't mean you have to lower your expectations, as Tammy is finding out.
There's something thrilling about moving house and building a brand new garden. But what about rebuilding a brilliant established garden in a brand new space? I've known Steve Falcioni for years. He's a horticulturist who writes about gardens. Steve, this is looking super lush.
Hey, thanks, Tammy. It's not too bad. Not too bad.
So you've got a few veggies and flowers in here?
Exactly, yeah. But mostly veggies, just the odd flower here or there because I can't help myself. But at home, definitely a lot more flowers and less veggies.
Oh, I think we should go see that.
Absolutely. Let's do it.
In 2019, we visited Steve's previous garden, an extraordinary rooftop urban oasis made up of hundreds and hundreds of potted wonders. Since then, Steve has had to move his rooftop garden to a much smaller space. But how to squeeze it all in? Wow, Steve!
Yeah, it's pretty.
Pretty amazing.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
It's highly concentrated colour, form and texture. A portrait in miniature of an urban garden romance. There's so much going on. There's colour, flowers and even trees and fruit.
Yeah, that's what makes it good. I've tried as much as I can to jam as much as possible into what is a pretty small space.
And how small is it?
6 metres by 4 metres, so 24 square all up. Probably lost maybe half the space, so that meant plants had to go.
What was that experience like?
That was really hard, like really, really hard. It's like, you know, saying goodbye to your babies. Yeah, it was hard. Even now, I'm like, oh. But once we did the cull, then it's just getting used to being in a different location. So different light levels. This is a lot sunnier, but also quite windy, which means it's a lot harder on the plants.
So does it mean your plant collection has sort of compromised as a result? Or?
Look, a few things didn't really make the transition. They had to go. Bit of a learning curve, for sure.
So Steve, you've created a real sense of depth here. I can see you've built up layers, but what have you used to do that?
So all around the edges are rectangular troughs, and there's 2 layers of them. So the layer at the back is slightly higher, so that helps give a little bit of height, but also kind of depth to look into a bed. Just gives that little
But it's hidden so well with the plants. Like, I can't make out that there's troughs under there.
Yeah, well, I don't like to see the edges because it kind of ruins the illusion. But also, because this does cop the hot afternoon sun, it is handy for helping to insulate the pot. So the roots stay a little bit cooler, the plants don't dry out quite as fast, all that.
Is that why you then planted so densely as well? I mean, for visual effect, but also to help the plants sort of, stand up on their own?
Look, I think it does make a big difference, yeah. The extra moisture in the air, the humidity that they create upon each other helps, I think, when we get that hot weather that comes through. Obviously, visually, it works really well and I like it, but the plants have kind of each other for company. They've got their companions to keep them company and keep them well looked after. Kind of all works together.
Steve's balcony is so deep, it takes a little courage and agility to get all the way into the furthest beds. So what's really thrived here?
There's kind of a few groups of plants. The Tillandsias, or the air plants, they're very, very happy. Bromeliads, kind of my stars, really, really happy in the space. And one of the great things about them is small root balls. So I can fit a lot of them in amongst other plants and they're not fighting for space in the pots. Then there's some succulents tucked in here and there, good old succulents. Also, quite a few bulbs. There's something magical about bulbs, and many of them are happy in pots. Great. So, I can have bulbs. But mostly it's accepting this is what will grow well here, and I'd rather have thriving plants than sort of sad things. Also, I am an organic gardener, so I do focus on trying to make sure that the soil is as good as it can possibly be to keep the plants strong kind of from the base all the way up. Makes a big difference, I think.
Steve also has a smaller balcony facing south, where plants can get a reprieve if it's all too much. And how old is your garden?
It's only 2 years since I've moved in, but I definitely feel like the garden now is feeling established. I want my garden to be interesting. Like, it needs to have change for me. If a garden is static, it's kind of boring. Like, I want things happening all the time. It has a really nice feel to it. Quite happy with the way it's all come together. Feels like a real garden.
Renewal isn't necessarily easy, but the evidence of Steve's commitment to his garden is all around us. So Steve, you've done it. You've gone from a large rooftop to this sweet balcony. How does it make you feel?
It feels good, actually. Yeah, it was a difficult decision to make, to downsize, so to speak. And I wasn't sure I'd be able to cope with having less plants. I know.
We're still going through therapy for that.
But it's come together really well. I'm glad I made the move and I'm happy with the garden. It's good.
Well, the garden certainly looks happy.
Yeah, they're thriving.
Steve's balcony is a brilliant reminder of how a passion for plants can pull you through challenging times. It's a partnership that helps Steve and his garden make it through to the other side, refreshed and at peace. The inspiring thing about this garden of Steve's is just how much there is of it. And I hope it becomes a motivation for anyone with just a few pots on their balcony to see that as just the start.
Here you go.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for coming to see my garden.
What a lovely view.
Yes, it's beautiful, isn't it?
Is there a way to improve the flavour of dandelions? Well, many years ago, when I was a kid in London, I maintained a plot of very fine dandelions. And just as they started to produce new leaves in spring, what I'd do was to get a terracotta pot and place it over a clump. Now that blanches the leaves and they grow up towards the sunlight in the hole. That removes all the bitterness, but they remain lovely and crisp. Now, if you combine that with a lime-based salad dressing and a little bit of toasted sesame, the humble dandelion becomes a gourmet meal.
What makes heirloom seeds so special? Heirloom varieties have been grown for generations, making them part of our agricultural heritage. There are literally thousands of varieties of heritage vegetables grown all over the world, and they display unique characteristics which make them well suited to various conditions, such as heat tolerance or disease resistance. The other thing is that heirloom varieties are true to type, meaning you can save seed from a crop and have it display the same traits the following season.
Why do we cut leaves in half on cuttings or seedlings? Well, leaves are so important for photosynthesis, turning sunlight into plant energy and food, but they also release heaps of moisture through transpiration. Without roots, cuttings struggle to replace the water lost through big leaves that's needed to put more energy into building a new root system. By removing 99% of the leaves and cutting the remaining large one in half, you can actually balance the plant's resources better between root and shoot, meaning the plant can retain more water so it can develop into a whole new plant.
Poets' Corner in Sydney's Redfern is a cosmopolitan place. It's a real melting pot of people from all over the world who've come together to share a love of gardening. Paula Lee is originally from Vietnam, and these community gardens have been a big part of her life for over 10 years. Hello, Paula.
Hey, morning, Costa. How
Great
are
to
you?
meet you. I've bought you a little gift of Greek biscuits.
Oh, very nice. Thank you.
Wow, look at the garden. There's so much going on. How many plots are there?
16.
16. And they're so full.
Please come in.
Thank you.
We are people in 70 and 80 years old.
The community garden is nestled between two residential blocks where the gardeners live. What is it that you love about this garden?
I think because most of us living in high-rise building, we don't have a balcony. In the afternoon, you just take a short walk and do some light work in the garden. I get to know people in my neighborhood more.
And what are the people in the neighbourhood all about?
They are from different backgrounds. We have Chinese, Croatians, Malaysian, Korean, Greek, Filipino, Vietnamese, Czech, and Russian.
Wow, it's a real United Nations.
I know. I think people have a different idea about how to take care of their own plot. Some people want to grow veggies only. Some people prefer flower.
So this is your plot, Paula?
Yes.
Who's been helping you learn about gardening?
I must say that the people from Botanic Garden, from the Community Greening Project, we've learned a lot, how to grow the plants from seeds and from seedlings, and how to prepare the soil, and when is the time to buy some fertilizer and add it to the garden, and how to look after the plants as well. Flowers or plants have special meaning to me. For example, this one called curly Sue.
Yeah,
Yes.
curly Sue.
Given to me by my friends.
Oh, nice.
And this one, the Chinese lantern, given to me by my neighbor. And this some chili. And look at this one. This is the Vietnamese mint.
Vietnamese mint, yes.
Yeah, we use it to garnish our food.
What do you love about having a plot like this?
It's, I think, having a garden similar to having a pet, but maybe it's less time consuming.
That's a good point. Ahoy, Dana.
Ahoj.
Jak se máš?
Mám se dobře, děkuji.
Prosím tě, I heard that you're from Czech Republic.
That's right.
I lived there for quite some time.
Oh, amazing.
So I had the chance to pick up some of your language. But here, your garden is speaking my language. Tell me, what are you growing in your patch?
Well, lots of things. I've been focusing on herbs, mainly herbs for teas and salads, and just experimenting with few things like some ecological mix to bring more butterflies and little insects, then big sunflowers.
So what have you got growing? I see you've got some thyme.
Thyme. I have a sage, basil. Then there is a lemon balm, parsley,
What brought you to Australia? Why did you leave Czech Republic?
Well, it was a bit of adventure, really. I came just with my sister, and at that time they were recruiting migrants from Europe, young people, and we migrated in 1969.
To Australia?
Yeah, and just wanted to see the world. And that was the only way, I think, to do that at that time from Czech Republic.
What does it mean to you coming down into a garden space like this?
No, it's a really wonderful opportunity to come down from my flat in the high-rise. And even on rainy days, you know, just to come and just be in this safe space, sit down under the shade of a tree and just contemplate and just actually rest my eyes on nature, on greenery, on flowers. So it's a real blessing, you know, to be part of a nice community of people. There are a few regulars like Nina and Paula, and so I get to know them.
Yeah, would you like tea or coffee?
Nina,
No.
a biscuit. This is shortbread, this is sesame, and this is orange and... Oh, sesame? Yeah. A kuluri. These are Greek biscuits. My contribution to the multicultural gathering.
Thank you.
Some of Paula and Diana's gardening friends turn up to share tea and biscuits, another universal language of community life in the garden. So, Nina, how do you say thank you?
Спасибо.
Spasiba. Philippines?
Salamat.
Salamat. How do you say thank you in Vietnamese?
Cảm ơn.
Cảm ơn.
Yes,
Cảm ơn.
correct.
In Croatia?
Hvala lijepo.
Hvala lijepo.
Yeah.
And what about in Czech? Oh, I know that one.
Děkuji vám.
Děkuji vám.
Yeah.
Děkuji vám.
Děkuji or děkuji pěkně.
Děkuji pěkně. And then Evcharisto in Greek. But it's soon back to work with Paula and Dana, who want some help with a neglected part of their community garden.
There is something. It's like the brick or something underneath.
The gardeners were frustrated because this area was kind of one of those spots like most of us have in the garden. It's shady, there's kind of stuff growing there, we're not that happy with it. How long has this space been kind of a no-go zone?
I guess it's for years because we thought that this one is not good for any plants to grow because it's not enough sun.
Yeah. So we've got creeping boobiala, which is a really rampant ground cover, which is what you want in a space like this. Behind that, of course, the Dudia ferns. They love this sort of dappled light condition, and that'll start to create a little bit of a next tier up, a little bit of height. And then we've got the appleberry, and it wants to climb, so it'll climb over this fence and kind of disguise the car park. And then the last one we've got over the back is alpinia, a native ginger. When these spread out over the area, can you imagine how many white flowers there's going to be?
Well, yeah, that'll be great. That's what we really need here. A few flowers, yeah.
Because that's going to bring the insects.
Yeah, wow.
And, you know, and that will help with the pollination of all the food plants as well, which is really good.
That's perfect. So we need to accommodate them.
Exactly.
So we need some bee hotels.
Yeah, I reckon you could put some in and around off the fence, up the trees. There's lots of opportunities. You'll have to think about it. Poets Corner has shown me that the love of gardening truly can be our universal language, accessible to everyone. It's given this vibrant inner city community a place to grow and share. Now that's life in my books. I'm in. This one's looking good, isn't it?
Oh, well, yeah, that's
It's been a great year for the pumpkins, but boy, do they take some water. Yet just over here, I've got a plant that's in a baking full sunspot, ordinary soil, and it's had absolutely no water. It's Zauschneria californica. It comes from California. It loves this dry baking heat. You can see it's got grey furry foliage, And it's been an absolute delight for many, many months over summer and autumn. The other thing that loves it is the little honey-eating birds. So a great addition to a hot, dry, sunny garden.
Many parts of the country are headed full steam into autumn, and it's a chance to really shift gears in the garden. Cool Climate Millie knows this better than most, and she's here with a plan for the change of season.
This truly has to be one of the most gorgeous moments in any garden. I reckon lots of you would agree with me. You've got beautiful, still, warm days, warm soil, and a hint of the cooler weather to come, which means it is the perfect time to get so many things done. One thing I can be really guilty of in the garden is getting so focused on all those jobs I have to do that I fail to stop and really look at what's happening and assess it for the season ahead. These dahlias are a great example of that. Last year, I grew them all from random seedlings. I didn't know what colour they were going to be, and then when they went dormant in winter, I lifted them, I stored them diligently, but I didn't keep track of what they were. So when I put them back in the garden last spring, I couldn't really work out where what colour should go, or even some of the smaller varieties to put them in the right position in the bed. So this year I want to mark them before they go dormant. Now you can see here there's two quite distinctly different yellows on this one plant. Now I'm not sure if it's one plant throwing different colours or a couple of different tubers that have ended up being planted together, but I'm going to mark them with some Christmas ribbon, and so when they die back and go dormant I'll be able to keep track, inspect, and next year I can be even more diligent with my displays. Another really important job I do a lot of at this time of the year is saving seed. That means that I'm selecting the very best performing flowers and food plants out of the garden to ensure next season they're even better. This is a lettuce variety. It's a red leaf cos that was given to me from my big brother's garden, which is about 3,500 kilometres west of here. Now, it was already a great lettuce, which is why I asked for some seed. But the benefit of growing and saving it year after year here in my garden is it's just becoming even better. It is acclimatising to the conditions here. So now it's going from a really good plant to superfood. And lettuce is truly one of the simplest things you can save yourself at home. It is a lovely little daisy, you can see the flower there, and then once these fluffy little seed heads start to form, you can cut it. You can just cut entire bunches off like that and then put them in a saucer or a basket to dry, and over the next week or two you'll find a lot of that seed will actually release and you can clean it and store it for sowing next year. This cornflower is probably the bluest in the garden this year, so I want to save some seed. And you can see that these little dry flower heads are absolutely packed. They're quite unique looking little seed. They've got tails almost, look like little paintbrushes. So I'm just going to take some of those heads off and then leave them to dry for a week or two, and then I can get the seed out, put it in a jar, keep it safe for sowing again next spring. You might remember when I set these carrots up to save some seed. It was a great variety and it held in the ground fantastically through winter. So you can see that it's got some nice bunches of seed which are essentially dry. So I reckon there's enough for me to save here. The technique is pretty simple. I'll hang the whole plant in the shed, carrot and all, and let it dry for a couple of weeks before I can clean and store the seed. In a regular-sized garden, it's hard to ever let any space go to waste, and particularly as we dive into those cooler months. Once it's cold here, growth stops. You can't establish new food. So I've already got most of this bed planted with brassicas, and where that carrot was sitting, that's valuable real estate. So straight away, I'm going to follow up with another crop. To prepare the bed, I just fork it over, layer on some compost, and then fork again before soaking it really well. I always check my brassica seedlings for caterpillar eggs before I plant them. At this time of the year, I just use a really thin layer of mulch and then water again before the net goes on to protect them. Another really simple technique for making the most of space, particularly at this time of year, is to raise a lot of seedlings. That means as soon as a bit of space opens up in the garden, you've got mature plants ready to go in. Now, I do it with the obvious things, but I also do it with some unusual crops, things like root crops, turnips and beetroot. It's an untraditional method. It's not normal that you would do that, but it works really well. So what I do is sow the seed, and as they germinate, I thin to about 3 plants per cell. When there's a spot in the garden, that whole clump of 3 plants can go in the ground and you get even more bang for your buck. If you've only got space in your life for one job at the moment, I reckon it should be making compost. It is the fuel for every great garden. And you can do it almost anywhere. I've got a couple of systems. One where I just chuck kitchen scraps in all the time. It breaks down slowly. It's a bit like a worm farm. And then this, which is designed for bulk materials. I can put a cubic metre of manure or other things in here and they can break down. But right now I want to make a really good compost brew. And there's a couple of rules for doing that, no matter what your system. One is diversity. You want lots of different materials. You want leafy green things like this garden waste. You want brown things like leaves, and you can even add animal manures. That's some of my chickens' poo. That's going to go in too. It adds a lot of nitrogen. The other thing you need to do is you need to chop things up small. It gives all of those organisms a chance to actually break that material down. It's like, you know, chewing them first for them. And I've done that with secateurs, I've bashed things with hammers, I've chopped things with knives. But recently I've decided that I want to upscale my compost game. You can hire petrol mulchers, but I really wanted an electric one. And after a long search, I found this one secondhand. You can see that that material is absolutely pulverised and mixed up. I've been putting both dry and green through it. So it's a great basis for the compost. I'm going to sprinkle on a bit of that chook manure, chuck in some leaves, and then I'll give it all a bit of a stir. The magic ingredient for compost is water. By keeping that moist, it'll really activate all of those microorganisms that do the work. And that thermometer, within a couple of days, will be up at 60 degrees, which is what I want. In a couple of weeks, when it cools down, I'll turn it again, maybe add some more water, and off it goes. And in a few months, I'll have really high quality compost to put out on the garden. Any time in the garden really is so amazing, but this time of the year is so deeply satisfying. So make sure this weekend you take a moment to look at how far you've come, taste a little of this delicious season, and of course, get some work done.
Still to come on Gardening Australia, Clarence checks out some local colour, Josh gets stuck into some salvias, and we meet an incredible floral artist.
Many things can damage plants. The heat, the cold, animals, even us gardeners. You need to work out what has caused that, because prevention is better than anything. This Vietnamese hot mint did get burnt over summer. You can see those brown leaves, crinkly, and if I had cut that back at that stage, it would have shot again, because pruning does encourage new growth, and that new growth then easily could have got sunburnt again. The best thing is to leave it until the change of season, cut it right back. You can see nice new shoots right down the bottom, and that's what you need to encourage, just to get rid of this sort of sunburnty look. Give it a little bit of liquid fertiliser, don't overfeed it, just be gentle, and you'll find that that plant will come back no problem at all.
What about family gardening traditions? Have you got any favourites, Jerry?
Yes, yeah. I come from 4 generations of fruit farmers in England, and one of the first things I ever did was to pick and preserve fruit.
Wow. How about you, Costa?
No-brainer. Any Greek household has to be designed around the lemon tree. There needs to be a lemon tree on the grounds somewhere, if not one, at least 3.
How awesome.
Yeah, exactly. What about you?
The tradition in our household was just playing out in the garden. My mum would never be in to cook a meal till late at night because she was too busy in the garden. And unfortunately, I've taken that on.
I wonder how many of you would think of Aussie natives if I asked you to picture autumn colour in your garden. Not convinced? Well, Clarence is here to change your mind.
Autumn is a welcome relief from the harsh conditions of summer, and it's also a time of incredible colour. Now, while many of you might think of maples and other Northern Hemisphere trees during this season, they're not the only ones that shine. Now, with the cooler weather and increased rainfall, many Australian plants switch over from their summer survival mode. Now, far from being a time of slowing down and dormancy, they start putting on new growth and flowers. Autumn is the time to turn it up, especially here at the Royal Botanic Gardens, Cranbourne. You really can't go past the iconic grevilleas and banksias, with many of them putting on their best show over autumn. Now, with literally hundreds of cultivars available, you're bound to find one suitable for your home garden. Now, this Banksia yellow wing, which is a cultivar of Banksia spinulosa, is particularly stunning. The fine foliage is completely laden with these tight, upright, beautifully coloured candlelight flower spikes, which are a favourite for a range of honey-eating birds and parrots who love their seed. Now, originally from much of the southern eastern seaboard, it has been bred to have a neat, compact form, reaching about 2 metres high and 2 metres wide. Just prune it right after flowering to keep it tight. Now, it's also reasonably fast growing and should do well everywhere from cool to subtropical climates in full sun or part shade. The other autumn flowering favourite is this gorgeous grevillea, bush lemons. And it's one of the few truly yellow grevillea cultivars out there, and these bright yellow flower spikes held against the grey-green foliage really help it stand out. It's also fast growing and will reach about 3 metres tall and 3 metres wide. Once it's finished flowering, you can give it a light prune. And feeding it some native fertiliser in spring will certainly keep it rocketing along. Several Australian rainforest trees produce attractive autumn berries. And this Arentacarpa rhombifolia, also known as the diamond-leaved protosporum because of its distinctive diamond-shaped leaves, has heavily perfumed small white flowers in summer, but they are followed by the main event in autumn, these colourful orange berries that are held on the tree in clumps for several months. Because this species hails from southern Queensland and northern New South Wales, it suits temperate, subtropical and tropical climates, where it forms an attractive medium-sized tree which isn't too large for suburban gardens. Now, one other thing. Although it looks like it, this is not the weedy Protosporum undulatum. Thinking laterally goes a long way when you're planting for autumn colour in the garden. Now, this Angophora costata, or smooth-barked apple, is a large tree that grows up to 20 metres in height. It's from coastal New South Wales and inland southern Queensland. and it's popular both in large gardens and as a street tree because of its winding limbs and masses of white, puffy flowers over summer. But what makes this tree a showstopper is its beautifully coloured bark. Now, it sheds in spring, and as that happens, the bark changes from this pale grey colour into this beautiful reddy pink salmon colour. And it's a dramatic feature of any autumn garden, native or not. On a smaller scale, but still making an impact, are the xerochrysum, otherwise known as paper daisies. Now, these are a beautiful plant for flower displays and can make a real statement. It flowers for most of the year in a profusion of colours, from pure white, yellow shades, pinks, oranges and reds. The first and strongest flush of blooms are in spring, but they hold onto their flowers well into autumn. They're quick growing and, depending on the climate and the cultivar, can be an annual, a biannual or a short-lived perennial. Now, when planting, they do like a well-drained soil, but they also like it in a pot. Now, they're partial to a little bit of tip pruning, but please don't overdo it. Then there are plants that choose autumn to set their seeds after being fertilised in the warmer months. Now, some of these seeds are just as big, showy and intricate as many flowers. When planted en masse, they can make for a glowing field of colour. Femita triandra, or kangaroo grass, is a great example. And this highly adaptable grass grows all over Australia, from full sun to part shade, from sandy to clay soils, and once it's established, needs very little water. It goes through various colours, starting off as green, and as the weather cools, this ornamental native grass will start to put on bronze foliage and produce large seed heads at the top of the plant. Because of its large distribution, growing conditions for Femita can be quite variable, so it's best to source seeds or nursery stock native to your local area. Now, as a plant, it doesn't need a lot of maintenance. Dead leaves can be raked out and old seed heads removed from the base. Now, if you want to keep it looking neat and fresh, the clumps can be cut back in early spring to encourage new green growth. So don't be fooled into thinking that seasonal displays are the sole territory of Northern Hemisphere plants. There's a stack of Australian autumnal colour to take advantage of and to keep the interest burning in your garden, even as the temperatures drop.
I've got a really handy tool for sifting and sorting compost, because while lumpy compost is absolutely great and easily spread under plants like trees, for other things like adding compost to potting mix or a seed bed, you need a finer grade. So I've made a compost sieve out of old timber and some avery mesh. I've made it nice and large to fit my wheelbarrow, and I use avery mesh because it's tough and it has tiny squares which captures most of the chunky stuff. I just dump the compost on and massage it through with my hands. And all this chunky stuff is just going to head straight back to the compost bin, where it'll keep breaking down. And now all this beautiful sifted compost can go straight onto my seed bed.
Salvias tick a lot of boxes. They propagate easily, they grow with minimal fuss, and they develop into beautiful, hardy shrubs. They're also extremely versatile. Their hardiness often extends to their pruning needs as well, with many of the varieties preferring a hard cutback in late autumn or into winter. But how you cut them back does depend on the type. For example, this one, which is Salvia lacantha, or Mexican sage, puts on its strongest regrowth right from the base. So, pruning is kind of like setting the clippers to 0 and going the full buzz cut right to the very base. I know it looks drastic, but don't panic. I promise it will come back. I pruned this salvia lacantha the same way just 2 weeks ago, and have a look at how quickly it's coming back. Salvia microphylla is a slightly different proposition. This one prefers a more restrained cut, evenly across the top, back and sides, and that's because it produces the strongest shoots off its woody stems. This just needs a quick tidy up with secateurs and a comb through to remove leaves and twigs. Again, it will grow back quickly, just like this one, also pruned 2 weeks ago. Well, that's the job done. And I know it's left a bit of a gap, but as you've seen, they'll soon recover.
Our gardens give us so much: beauty, joy, relaxation. And when we're going through adversity, they provide us with respite, comfort and inspiration. Our next story's with a floral artist who's found all this and more on her garden journey.
Gardens have always been like a huge part of my life. It's what I feel like I've just been drawn to. Like, I don't necessarily think there's like some like thing that I can put my finger on, but it's just where I feel most myself. It gets me out of my head. It gets me out of like the stresses of life. I'm Hattie Malloy and I'm a floral artist. I think a floral artist goes beyond, I guess, like the typical floristry that we've seen, like lots of fruits, lots of vegetables, so it's not, I guess, also just limited to flowers. When you start to push the boundaries, I think if you're like starting to do like larger scale like installations with materials also that maybe aren't just flowers, I think that's when it starts to kind of push that barrier, for me at least. These are some amazing garden roses that a friend, luckily enough, let me cut from her bush. And then I've also just paired them with some birds of paradise, which people wouldn't maybe think that roses and birds of paradise go together, but it's about more so like the movement and the shape that you create. Biggest challenge is making sure that it's balanced and that it stays upright as well, because you do have quite a lot of weight and you've got things that are very prickly, so to manoeuvre them and to get it all kind of right and harmonious is a skill. I was born in Blackrock and I grew up around that area, and then we moved down the Mornington Peninsula when I was quite young. When I would go to these like cliff top walks down in Portsea, and when it was freesia season, and all I would do was pick bouquets upon bouquets upon bouquets of posies of freesias. It's just all I wanted to do, and spending a lot of time in my grandma's garden. Like, I would make posies for my teachers, I would take them to school. Like, it's just what I wanted to be around. My grandma would also take me to the local florist, and I would sit there in awe and be like, oh my God, people get to do this for a job, you know? So I think it was like always like what I kind of thought I would do. I was working for other florists, and then I was just kind of doing my own thing on the side and posting on Instagram. And it was not necessarily to start a business. I was actually very scared to start a business. But I guess because I was doing something new that wasn't really around, people kind of found my work and gravitated towards it. Then all of a sudden took off really quickly. I was diagnosed with a functional neurological disorder in July 2021. And so just happened all of a sudden. One day I had a migraine, and then the next day I was unable to walk, talk, and I was just convulsing. And so I lost all of my ability to send like those automatic signals from my brain to my body to be able to do everything that I used to do. So I've had a long road of learning how to walk again, how to talk again, how to do a lot of life skills again, and I'm still trying to figure out how to, I guess, do that. So FND is a pretty unknown condition as well, and I feel like it's quite a stigmatised condition. It does affect greatly women, like 80% now studies are saying, and it's something that they don't understand, unfortunately. It's had a huge impact on my life and my work and, I mean, everything. I don't have independence in the sense that I can't leave my house without someone. I can't do most of my household tasks or things like that. I can't drive. I use a walking stick when I'm walking, or for longer periods I'm in a wheelchair. This is my little balcony garden here in East Melbourne that I like to grow as many things on it as possible. I have a lot of things, especially because I don't have access to going to the flower market a lot and things like that. I try and grow things that I can snip and then I can make little arrangements with. I feel really grounded and I guess just immersed when I'm in this space, especially when sometimes I can't get out of the house and I can't, you know, go out. At least I get to connect with nature here and feel like I'm a part of the outside world. So it's really important for me. And that's why I think I've kind of made it quite immersive, so it kind of hugs you almost. I guess I'm growing generally for things that I can use, that I use in my arrangements. Some sweet peas growing. I've also been able to grow a Sturt desert pea out here that flowered, which was my greatest gardening achievement to date. And then I guess I grow herbs and things like that as well that I like to have for cooking and things like that. So everything has a practical use. It always kind of amazes me what I can come up with out of that space. And usually it is kind of like some quite common things like pansies, violets, nasturtium. So they're all really easy to grow. Some of these delicate flowers, like, you can't buy at the flower market because they are so small and dainty. When I start off an arrangement, I usually try and think about kind of the movement of it. So I guess like its highest point, and then I call them just like the darty bits. And I guess where also like the negative space is gonna kind of lie, and then a focal point, which is always important. And just always a bit of interest. I feel like with colour, I just tend to make whatever works and somehow it comes together. It'll be nice when the Japanese maple comes. My darling mother Louise, I feel so lucky, one, that we get along so well, because she's been my full-time carer for the past 2.5 years. And she does everything for me. She's here 9 o'clock in the morning to 9 o'clock at night, helping me, still, you know, driving me around to jobs, to appointments. So yeah, I'd be lost without her. So I've had to make, you know, huge adjustments, but I still have been determined to still work throughout this. I think that sometimes it's easy when everything stops working to just like focus on everything that isn't working, and my creative, I guess, practice has given me something to focus on that is still working, because I'm still creative, I still have ideas, I can still make those ideas come to life. I just have to do it in a different way now. This is my home studio that I photograph a lot of my work in, and it's just kind of my play space as well. I take photos of my arrangements and, you know, they end up, I guess, on social media, but then I also, you know, make a calendar at the end of each year out of it and sell prints on my website also. I think that a lot of the beauty comes from using like interesting and things that you wouldn't, I guess, normally pair with flowers. So I love corn. Like, it's just so incredible, the colours and the texture and everything. And then with the humble radish, and then with lily of the valley, which is one of the most gorgeous flowers and scents that you can get. If I actually think that it's maybe not going to go together, I think I'm onto the right thing, if that makes sense, because I think pairing things with what you don't maybe traditionally think of going together, and all you can do is have a play and see if it works. Like, I started out this and I even was like, oh, maybe this isn't going to work. But then as you go along, you start to see, I guess, how things can intertwine together. I think that, like, my view on the world is that I do like to change, like, I guess, the context of how you perceive things. I like having that, like, oh, what is that? Or, oh, how did she do that? Or how is that created? I don't need to kind of recreate nature, because nature does a great job. I need to put my own spin on it.
You already know what time it is. We're putting your inspiration into action. Here's your jobs for the weekend. Cool temperate gardeners, the arrival of awesome autumn weather is imminent. Start prepping beds for winter crops, removing spent summer staples, improving soil and mulching well. Bursting for brassicas? Get them started in seed trays either indoors or in a greenhouse. Think broccoli, cauliflower, kale and cabbage. They'll be ready to plant out in the patch in a month. Autumn brings with it some fantastic foliage, followed by leaf fall. Cover ponds with firmly fixed netting to catch autumn leaves before they foul the water. Don't leave it until it's too late. In warm temperate gardens, check bee hotels for spiders that have set up shop and clear their webs with a brush to move them on. Think of it as room service for your B&B. Wanting to prep beds for winter planting and still have some toms ripening? Pull tomato plants out, roots and all, and hang upside down in the shade. They'll mature over time and you'll get your beds back. Plan ahead and whack in some wonderful winter colour with flowering annuals like Alyssium, Cineraria, Pansies and Polyanthus. They'll be blooming beautifully in about 10 weeks' time. Subtropical gardeners, take your salad from garden to gourmet and sow some corn salad. A lovely lettuce substitute, this quick-growing green has a mild, nutty flavour. Weeds are jumping out of the ground right now, threatening to take over. Spend 20 minutes a day in the garden removing weeds and remulching. Great for you and your garden's well-being. flowering bulbs aren't just for cooler climates. Add some awesome autumn colour to your patches and pots with blood lilies, autumn crocus and nerines from your local nursery. In the tropics, hold off on pruning until next month, as humid weather can make pruning cuts more prone to fungal infection. While you're waiting, why not sharpen up that pruning saw? Full of flavour and not frightened of humidity, Suyo Long is a cracking cucumber variety. The skin is deeply ridged and dark green, the vine vigorous and the fruit sweet and mild. With the possibility of wild weather continuing for the next month or two, make sure things like pots, planters, outdoor furniture and garden tools are secured safely when not in use. Arid gardeners, it's the perfect time to care for your container garden. Get into repotting and fertilising, pruning and pampering, mulching and making totems for your potted pretties. Want a citrus with a difference? How about a yuzu? The fruit looks like a lemon, but the flavour is a spicy blend of grapefruit and mandarin, highly prized in Japanese cuisine. If you've been irrigating with grey water over summer, time to give your lawn and garden a break over autumn and winter. Flush with fresh water to allow soil and beneficial microbes to recover. Autumn is upon us, and with so much to do in the garden, we're always here to help. Head over to our website for fact sheets, tips, tricks, and to sign up for our regular newsletter. That's all we could cram in this week, but we're keeping it coming for next time. Here's what you can look forward to.
I'm meeting a gardener who will inspire you to get out there and keep learning, whether you're new to gardening or an old hand.
Are you tired of your plants drying out because you're too busy to water them or you're on the road a lot? Well, I've got a solution. This here is a wicking pot. They're easy to make, and I'm going to show you how to do it and give your plants an insurance policy. And we meet a group of creatives doing some sweet work.